It's here, everybody. The scores, the reviews for Death Stranding, they've arrived and we're going to look at it together. I have seen the number, the Metacritic number. I've seen like some initial impressions. People have been like, 2 thumbs up, but I've not read any of these reviews yet. I haven't gotten into the minutia of it. So I will be experiencing this fresh with all of you, okay? It's going to be very interesting. Last night, I posted to our member/sub-only Discord asking what your Metacritic predictions were. I will admit I should have posted this earlier, so not very many people got to respond to it. But I was going with 87, and you can see I posted that at 9:23 p.m. I was like, I think high 80s. That's where I'm going with. I'm going to be conservative with my estimate. 87. Jacob guesstimated an 86. N gave it an 83. B went for like 82. F went for 88. Awixa gave 92. E an 83, H 85, F 89. But this is after reviews dropped, so I guess it's not technically a prediction. But this is where it started. So when the first wave of reviews dropped, it was sitting at, when I checked it this morning, 88. And after about an hour and a half, more reviews dropped and it went up to 89. Now it's up to 101 reviews and it's at a 90. And this is pretty rare. You like, honestly, often Metacritic scores drop from their initial like anchor point, because typically what happens is if somebody really likes the game, they play through it, they really enjoy it, and they make their review and they launch it right at the embargo time. But what also sometimes happens is people who didn't really connect with the game take their time to play it, and then they will put their reviews out like in the days following the embargo, and their scores tend to just on average be lower than the consensus was at the start. That's what happened with like KCD2, for example. With KCD2, it started at this point and it dropped just a tad. It's pretty normal. But to see the score increasing as more reviews come out is not that common. It's a little bit more rare. What we see from these is, of course, a lot of very, very positive reviews. 4 mixed ones in this lineup. A lot of these are from outlets I personally have never heard of. So, I mean, I'm sure they're great people and wonderful people, but a lot of these are kind of newer ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the reviews from outlets that we've looked at before that I think tend to be much more fair. So like, we're not going to be looking at Eurogamer. We're not going to be looking at Kotaku or anything. I'm going to try to stick to the guys that I've historically liked and agreed with. That being said, I also want to say at the outset, I did get warned by some of you that the IGN video review has spoilers in it. So to be cautious, we're not going to look at that because obviously I don't want to be spoiled either. So we're going to steer clear of that. Okay. But we're going to take a peek at all of these. I have VGC's perfect score review pulled up, and then I think we'll also take a peek at maybe a review or two that's maybe more like middle of the road to get some counter like veiling opinions. Maybe we look at VG247 and see what they think of it, and we check these out. There's also, of course, a tech review from Digital Foundry that goes through some of the technical improvements and enhancements that they've made. And if we have time for this, we'll check that out because they showcase a lot of the more technical stuff that's going on, which could also be very, very interesting at the outset. My expectation for Death Stranding 2 was that it was going to be just Death Stranding with all the dials turned up. I was intrigued to see what the consensus was going to be from the reviewer side of things, because what can sometimes happen is with the first game that's polarizing, they hand it out to reviewers that are very mixed. Some people love it, some people hate it. And that's what we saw with the original Death Stranding, like an 82 on Metacritic, user scores in the 7s. It just wasn't, it wasn't overwhelming like critical acclaim. It did well. It was generally positive, as they described there. But what happens with the sequel is often they can assign it to reviewers who liked or connected with the first game, and then, that's naturally going to breed higher review scores. But what's really particularly interesting about this is that a lot of people who are reviewing it that didn't like or didn't love maybe the first game are finding it much, much better. Jake Baldino, the one and only from GameRanks, said, I like Death Stranding 2 more than the original. Starts off feeling samey, but quickly reveals fun gameplay improvements that I think big fans will dig. The story is mostly paced much better than the OG. Sam is cooler, has more agency, crazy stuff happens. Nice and weird, just how we like it. Another Death Stranding 2 note, if you thought Death Stranding 1 was boring or just a walking sim, once again, this one ain't for you, lol, and that's okay. Deliver the test subject kangaroo to the animal shelter. Yeah, it's a Kojima game. Delivering kangaroos, ladies and gents. That's what we're doing. Yeah, and this is perhaps the bigger thing to remember also with reviews when we discuss them. A Metacritic score is not like this overarching ultimate grade, like objectively on what this product, where it stands in terms of quality. That's not what a Metacritic score is. That's not what a review is. What you should instead look at them as is like, for people who like these kinds of games, this is where it sits, okay? For people who like games like Death Stranding, as if there's a ton of them, but if you like these types of games that are really artsy, kind of bizarre, walking sims, delivery games, if you like that, it's like a 9 out of 10 for you. That's how you should think about it. It's the same with like Elden Ring. If you hate FromSoft games and you hate difficult combat systems and stuff like that, Elden Ring getting an amazingly high Metacritic score does not mean therefore that you will like it. You might actually end up liking it if you try it, and maybe that's what gets you into it. But it means for people who like that kind of game, this is what they'll think of it. And so if you thought that like the original Death Stranding just wasn't for you, this probably is not magical. It's not going to like change your mind, which is something we've been saying for weeks. Like, it's more Death Stranding. It's just better is what it seems to be. And now you can deliver kangaroos. I think kangaroos is the plural. Kangaroo. So there's that. There's also other things that we'll see more of in the individual reviews. As Gene said here, Death Stranding 2 also greatly streamlines its menus, no longer needing to have hard confirms for moving packages in and out of vehicles. You can drive vehicles without emptying floating carriers. You can pick up items while driving. Monorail makes moving loads easy, and the MP3 player rules. Just across the board, it seems like it's just a very, very, very streamlined Death Stranding, which if you like Death Stranding is great. But if you hated the first game, nothing's really going to change here. But let's see the actual individual reviews and look at these a little bit more closely. So our first review is coming from VGC. Death Stranding 2 review. Hideo Kojima delivers an all-time great sequel and one of his best. Their greatly improved follow-up delivers on the concept the original promised. So while with Death Stranding on the beach, the studio has made a sequel that significantly improves on the original in virtual every way, with a stunningly designed world, greatly expanded gameplay and player choice, and one of Hideo Kojima's most compelling narratives and a cast of characters to date. Death Stranding 2 delivers on the core concept the original game promised in a package that admirably balances Kojima's Hollywood sensibilities with top-notch action and unmatched atmosphere. It's undoubtedly one of the best sequels in recent memory and arguably one of Kojima's best ever games. It's a big statement. High praise indeed. On the Beach is once again a story of a lone courier traveling across a hostile land to reconnect the world. Following the conclusion to the first game, Death Stranding 2 begins with Sam Porter Bridges attempting to start a quiet life in the Mexican wilderness with his infant companion Lou, now a playful toddler, as they attempt to live out their new lives together as parent and child. Unsurprisingly, the domestic peace doesn't last long, and soon old colleague Fragile, but not that fragile, comes knocking on his door, and it's time to connect another continent through the means of package delivery. Of course, naturally, how else would you do it? Death Stranding 2 takes place roughly a year after the first game, with America connected to the chiral network, a sort of futuristic internet designed to connect cities following the apocalyptic Death Stranding event. Fragile has established a new company, Drawbridge, which aims to extend these connections to other countries, starting with Mexico. And this was like the most obvious way to turn up the dials and like do a sequel, was to just take you to different climates, different environments. And they're starting with Mexico, as you can see, and it offers you the chance to have a lot more variability in environments, because in the base game, like, you had the sort of Icelandic tundra and you had the snowy mountain area. That was largely it. You know, it was very samey, which I think is part of the reason a lot of people started to burn out. There's one point, was it chapter 3? There's one chapter in Death Stranding that just never ends. It just keeps going and going and going. And I've had some friends that fell off of it right at that point because it does just start to get really samey. And, you know, you can't really blame them if it gets, you know, too repetitive for you. That's fine. But I think having a lot more variability in the environments is going to help a lot. You know, even just seeing the difference between like this shot and then like this shot, okay, we're doing something very differently. There's a lot more variability up in here. I'm excited to see it. Let's see what else. Sam agrees to help Fragile connect Mexico. I don't really want to hear much more story stuff. Okay, so while some of the more esoteric edges have sanded down and Kojima's usual on-the-nose approach to characters and storytelling may roll some eyes, Death Stranding 2 is otherwise a much better written, well-paced, and overall more enjoyable story than the predecessor. This is what I've been hoping to hear. Like, yes, he still is going to have characters named Stand on Floor Man and Opens Door with Hand Dude. Like, he's going to have, you know, some bizarre names and characters like that, I'm sure. But if the actual, like, individual bits of the narrative are better, I'm in for it. You know, because again, where I fall off of Kojima's stuff with Death Stranding specifically was with the writing, was with the monologues. I just couldn't deal with it, you know. It really, really frustrated me. But seeing them specifically say it's much better written, much better paced, and an overall more enjoyable story, that gets me intrigued. Kojima says Death Stranding 2 is a much weirder game, and tonally it feels much more like a campy sci-fi action movie than the obtuse, somber dread of the first. Though an early story event sets high emotional stakes for Sam and the player, Death Stranding 2 is broadly less pro-faced story, or less po-faced, I don't know. With Kojima freeing himself to explore more fun and interesting ideas, having established the stakes of the universe in DS1. Drawbridge operates from Colossal Floating Base, the DHV Magellan, which is helmed by Tarman, George Miller, Marty Roan, and can teleport around the world map by riding the paranormal tar currents manifested by the Death Stranding event. Having a consistent base of operations allows for some compelling character interactions, and Death Stranding 2 is full of personality in ways the original was not. I think that this was also one of the really jarring things about the original game, was that it's all about connecting the world, but the world felt so dead and unworthy of saving. You know, like even when you do cross a continent and you connect, you know, one of the last stations, you know, you go talk to the farmers and you connect the farmers up to the network and everything, or you go up and you, the spiritualist up in the mountains, you go connect her up to the chiral network. And you're only ever talking to like a floating hologram. And even then they're like very stiff. They have a few lines of dialogue, but there's not a whole lot of connection there. There's not a whole lot of interaction. So it made the whole world feel very empty, hollow, and kind of, I don't know, just empty, you know, lonely perhaps. But seeing that they're, you know, with this base of operations where you can have more consistent character interactions, I think that's going to help a lot. For a start, Sam now has a new companion, Dahlman. Remember what I was saying about like Stand on Floor Man? He's a man trapped inside a puppet. That talking puppet, yeah, his name is Dollman. He travels on Bridges' belt and drops occasional wisecracks and commentary. Dude, there is no way this was not a direct inspiration from God of War 2018 with... Crap, what's his name? Oh, God, why can I not remember his name now? The head on Kratos' belt. What the hell is his name? Mimir, thank you. I cannot believe I could not place it. Thank you, Samaya. Yeah, Mimir. I'm sure that was kind of the inspiration for this. Have a talking companion with you all the time. It's a good way to constantly have banter back and forth, which is why so many games do it. During gameplay, characters will even send you a text and picture messages, adding further to a layer of optional narrative. Oh, that's kind of cool. Kind of like Cyberpunk or Spider-Man 2 did that. Spider-Man 2 did it really annoyingly, though, where they're like, welcome to my podcast. Let's talk about stuff. It was really annoying. Anyway, important plot moments are far better paced than the original, with new ideas and twists coming thick and fast, viscously, dare I say, and frequent introductions to new characters. In a smart and welcome tweak, dialogue trees have been introduced, making deeper story exposition optional. And there's even an in-game wiki, which players can consult at any time, even during cutscenes, to double-check lore references. This right here sounds fantastic. That sounds great. Because, like, again, the first game, if he wanted to tell you something about the world, it was a 15-minute cutscene, and then he sends you 15 emails, and you need to read all the emails in the game menus to understand everything. But if it's just tied to dialogue branches and stuff, I like that way better. Because the people who want to learn about the world can do that. The people who just want to do the delivery, they can do that. They don't need to bother with it. I'll have to see what the in-game wiki is like. One of the recent ones I really liked and appreciated was Avowed, because what Avowed did is they had, whenever you would talk to somebody, yeah, this is an example of it. Open image in new tab. Here, you remember in like in Avowed where they'd have this thing where there would be certain like bolded words or underlined words and things where you could then pull up and press a button, hide dialogue, history, and lore. And then you could see in the dialogue you just engaged with, you could just go and find the reference. Oh, wait, who was Abaddon? Or what is that? Okay, and then you can pull it up and read it in the list and it explains what it is. Wadika, what is that? Also known Burn Queen, Strangler, Oathbinder. Okay, is the goddess of justice. And then you understand what's going on. I love this kind of thing to just quickly give you a chance to be reminded of that lore stuff. And I wonder if it's like this or if it's closer to just an in-game kind of like list of, or glossary, I think is what a lot of games call it. But either way, I think that's an improvement. That's good. And so begins another game about delivering parcels and connecting humanity. While the difficulty of doing so and the novelty of the game's buckaroo-style cargo system have faded since the original, the peaceful, almost relaxing menial task of moving things from one place to another remains. And that's what I've always liked, is that you can just kind of turn your brain off and deliver packages. I get that a lot of people hate that. I get that. Like, I understand it. But I've always found it somewhat relaxing. You turn on a movie or a TV show on the second monitor, and then you just deliver packages. You know? You just do the thing. And of course, when you hit main story stuff, you have to pause the store or pause the show, and then you pay attention to the story. But when you're just hiking through a mountain or down a valley and delivering a package, you just turn your brain off and you just kind of do, you know, it's a good junk food game in that way. What makes Australia a significantly different prospect to connect than the US is its inhabitants. You mean all the monstrous animals and things? While combat was an afterthought of the first game, though given more prominence in the director's cut release, action is far more inherent to Death Stranding 2. Threats, both human and otherwise, will quickly complicate your routes, and an improved combat system is the player's way of dealing with them. Gunplay feels much improved, stealth and non-lethal options are more fleshed out. Yes, the specter of Solid Snake hangs around every enemy base that you take out silently, but this isn't a MGS tribute act. It's easily one of the best playing Kojima games to date, with the player's autonomy greatly expanded. Exploration is also more entertaining, with a plethora of dynamic events introduced that players, or force players, to think on their feet. Earthquakes can occur, knocking you off balance and causing rock slides. Timefall can now flood rivers, making them more dangerous to cross. Sandstorms drastically reduce visibility and make you slower or faster depending on wind direction. And bushfires scorch through vegetation, creating a dangerous roadblock. The biggest improvement to Death Stranding 2's gameplay, however, is in how it empowers players to approach challenges in their own style. There's a far greater variety of objectives here, and more optional paths for the player. The main story may task you with clearing armed militia soldiers from a town stealthily, or guns blazing, tracking the footsteps of a lost ally, or even escorting an injured kangaroo to an animal shelter. Speaking to other reviewers, it was striking how different our approaches were to tackling objectives, and that's clearly something Kojima Productions has set out to facilitate with On the Beach. You can sneak, traverse, or strap 2 machine guns onto your truck and fly in at 60 miles per hour. It's up to you. This is a walking simulator or a chaos simulator.
Will donated $10 through Super Chat. Hey Luke, I would really enjoy it if you could react to a first impressions video on BL4 and speak on your experience compared to his. Can I DM you the channel name?
Yeah, or post the link in the Discord, because you're in there, right? Just post it in there. I think that's a good spot. It's interesting that they're also speaking to other reviewers. I wonder if this is other reviewers within VGC or not. I don't know. I typically try to stay more isolated when I'm reviewing stuff and not talk to people. Like, if you run into one example, for instance, going back to Avowed, my time with Avowed was so buggy, it was disastrous. Like, I could barely get the game running, and if you haven't seen my review of it, I show the footage of it. It was really bad. I absorbed all of the bugs everybody on the planet had, for everybody. It's just, I'm a bug magnet. What can I say? But they had a Discord server where like we could coordinate with the tech team at Obsidian and try to fix bugs and overcome them. And so in that case, like, I chatted with other reviewers who were trying to get around their own technical issues, but that's typically the extent of it. Like, hey, I think I hit a soft lock. Have you guys found a fix or a way around this yet? And like that's what you'll do. But I wonder, I don't know, it's interesting to hear them say that they were talking with other reviewers. During one late mission, I was tasked with traversing from the top of the map to the bottom. As I took on the mission, I was warned that my cargo was extremely delicate and I had to overcome a dangerous enemy base. Now, you could methodically take out everyone in the base, then load up a truck with delicate cargo and slide down the hill. However, I had just spent several hours on an arduous hike, during which I almost died multiple times. I wanted to let Sam's hair down, so I loaded up one floating crate with the cargo, attached another. I stood on the empty crate, aimed to the bottom of the hill, and flung myself towards it at top speed. It was hilarious, strangely majestic, and a perfect example of how frictionless this game is compared to the original. Another deviation from the first game is the way the game handles BTs. These ethereal, terrifying creatures from the original are far less prominent, and outside of a few main missions can almost be entirely avoided. Sam is also very well equipped to handle them from the beginning of the game, so the innate terror that they have instilled is largely gone, which is also interesting because in the trailers I feel like they also had a large presence, but they're describing how they've largely moved away from it. So that's interesting. When you, and if you choose to, encounter BTs, however, they're often, this is weird. When you, and if you choose to, encounter BTs, however, they're often in the form of more dangerous variants that actively patrol and search for the player, like Metal Gear guards, which is far more compelling than the invisible minefields of the original. The original minefields of just floating BTs, they have to sever their umbilical cords with your, I forget what they called them. That was always just kind of tedious, and it was something that I think most players just avoided, you know, instead of actively engaging with it. But this at least seems interesting. Seems a little bit more compelling. As Sam connects Australia, new methods of delivery open up to him. The country has a monorail system that can be rebuilt, which allows the transport of large cargo more easily. Like the first game, the social strand system, which sees players all over the world connect to in-game structures, contributing to in-game structures, has a huge impact and remains one of the best uses of online connectivity in a single-player experience. At the start of the review period, the servers were awash with community-built roads, ladders, and bridges. Only the Soul series is as good at portraying the struggles of other players going through the same toil as you. Conversely, as we approached the end of the game, the servers went down for maintenance, evoking a much lonelier experience. Every road we built ourselves, every ladder, climbing anchor, and bridge was built off our own backs. All of this is in service of Hideo Kojima's best stories. A few other game makers evolve or evoke such a visceral reaction when their storytelling is discussed. While the quirks of Kojima's writing are still appropriately marmite, the cast of Death Stranding 2 are undoubtedly some of his best ever characters. Sam Norman Reedus remains an excellent vessel through which the player explores the world, and his relationship with Lou gives such higher emotional stakes to Sam's second journey than it did the first time. Similarly, Fragile takes on a much larger role in the sequel. Her performance is wonderful throughout, and she performs a lovable triple threat with Rainy and Tomorrow. The crew is rounded up by Tarman, Heartman, and Sam's constant companion, Dollman. Dollman hangs off Sam's hip throughout his journey and offers insight into the world, context about the areas you're exploring, and some comic relief. He's also animated at half the frame rate as everyone else, which gives an impressive puppet effect. Dollman is also practical. Sam can throw him high into the sky to provide an overview of the dangers that lurk ahead, or to scout an enemy base. Dude, you just chuck him in the air, and then he like looks around and tells you, okay, that's coming. It's like the Assassin's Creed Eagle stuff, but in this case, you're just chucking a doll into the sky. That's funny. That's funny. I'll give him that. That's funny. Let's see. While we must avoid specifics, Dollman's presence, which initially seems like some comic relief or a somewhat cheesy side character, is expertly paid off in the game's closing act. So he's gonna die is what you're saying. Okay. Where Death Stranding's, or maybe he's connected to the Snake character, I don't know. Where Death Stranding felt so isolating, we were constantly heartened to return to the DHV Magellan to catch up with the rest of the crew. Every few visits, the game will reward players with a brief vignette exploring life on the Magellan, like a supernatural soap opera. Gotta love that. I mean, supernatural soap opera.
Monsta_INC donated 16 New Zealand dollars and 99 cents
Thank
through
you.
Super Chat. Appreciate you, fam.
Appreciate you. Thank you, my friend. Much love. Thank you. Very generous. Okay, these sequences don't always impart important exposition or story progression. They're just a snapshot of fun characters spending time together. Sam has found a family to return to. Some of the best parts of the game are back on the ship, helping Tomorrow come to terms with her new world, or taking a Polaroid of the crew. It also describes how it's visually very, very good. We'll see more about that in the Digital Foundry bit, but yeah, graphically very good, musically very good. The final roundup is it is an epic, big budget sequel to Kojima's controversial cult classic. It offers a better story, an excellent cast of characters, a beautiful world to reconnect. Death Stranding 2 feels like the product of everything that's happened to Kojima since he left Konami, and it's easily one of 2025's very best. Death Stranding 2 on the Beach is an all-time great sequel and one of Hideo Kojima's best games, with a stunning world, greatly expanded gameplay and player choice, and one of Kojima's most compelling casts and narratives. It significantly improves on the original in virtually every way. And then, yeah, so excellent, adaptable, varied gameplay, one of the best looking video games ever, a stellar cast. Australia is better, bigger, and more lively map than the original. Wonderful soundtrack that feels like Kojima is texting you a playlist, and some animations repeated after 70 hours. Yeah, I mean, it seems overall very, very positive. So this was VGC's perfect score review. They gave it 5 out of 5 stars, said that it was phenomenal, and of course they love it. It's one of 2025's best. A more kind of middle of the road review is from VG247, and by middle of the road I mean like 8 out of 10, so still a positive review. They still are giving it like a B, you know. In this review they go into a little bit more minutia as to like specifics of gameplay, which is kind of interesting. So for example, the joy of community effort remains strong in Death Stranding 2. There's nothing quite like spending an hour gathering materials for a stretch of road, finally building it, and seeing a flood of likes from other players wash over your UI. Going back to prior areas and finding generators, zip lines, watchtowers, post boxes, and more dot the surroundings, make an often lonely game feel bustling. Other players make their own journeys out of sight, but not out of mind. I do, however, wish there were more constructs available here, though. Many big projects you unlock are returning from the original game, and while I understand that pushing too many of these could totally rid the deliveries of their sense of peril, why not make most of the new setting with some variations? In terms of gameplay, this game can feel like a bolt-on to Death Stranding rather than a sequel. I was torn on the foes you find during your time with Death Stranding 2. There's a new antagonist faction, and with them come a handful of new enemies which force you to take more combative approach to missions in which they're present. I think visually these are some of the coolest looking designs we've seen in a Kojima game since the Cobra unit in Metal Gear Solid 3. Crimson red futuristic hazards you can't hope to beat unscathed. But when it comes to the most cinematic moments, there's less variety than I had hoped. I can't write about it at length due to spoilers, but Kojima seemed content to reuse a lot, pulling from earlier in the game or from his prior works. So this guy's saying that there's a good amount of repetition and things that are repeated. The performances are great. Yeah, the story is heavy, bold in its direction, not afraid of throwing the odd gut punch here and there. Coming out swinging. Ultimately, playing through Death Stranding 2 was an emotional and utterly enjoyable experience, full of thrills and impossible to put down during its bigger moments. My only negative feeling towards it is it also, unfortunately a big one, that I wish Kojima Productions went further in evolving the sequel from the original. When the story goes to such an extent to explore new grounds, it's kind of a shame that the gameplay feels the need to play it safe. This is reiterated with what other people like, we mentioned earlier, Jake's tweet mentioned, which is that if you didn't like the first game, this one won't be for you either. It is Death Stranding. It's better Death Stranding. It's polished up Death Stranding. They're saying it's better written Death Stranding. It's visually stunning Death Stranding, but it's Death Stranding. And if you don't like that as a thing, as a game, it's okay. But this is not going to magically win you over. It's not going to change your mind on that. It's still weird, insane Kojima stuff, As for the tech side of things, I want to look at a couple of these because, we're not going to watch the whole video. But I'm interested in some of the details about the, like dynamic weather and the environmental effects, because again, the reviews that we've so far just been reading mention that graphically this game is freaking stunning. So we're going to, check it out. Let's see what they said about it as well.
Welcome, Sam. Please relax and enjoy your stay.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Like, again, I understand some people don't like doing deliveries and stuff, but as a junk food game, as a game I play when I turn my brain off, I could see really enjoying like just vegging out, hiking across the mountaintops.
Crossing the vast expanse, one foot in front of the other, the world stretches out before you. The sky and land mingle at a distance as the sun arcs across the sky above. There's no other games that quite capture the specific feeling of existing alone in such a vast space. It's special and central to the
Starfield.
the very core of Death Stranding.
Totally
The
empty.
original game took place across an Icelandic-inspired take.
Isn't it also funny? Like, I'll let him keep talking and then I'll shut up. But I remember in my brain Death Stranding looking pretty damn photorealistic. And like, you see these shots and the detail's insane. And then you see this and you're like, oh yeah, that looks like a PS4 game, But like in your brain, I remember it looking way better than like the actual footage of it on PS4. But, that's how video games work, is you look back after a few years and you're like, oh, yeah, I guess it wasn't photorealistic after all. It just felt that way at the time.
On a ruined United States. The sequel introduces players instead to Mexico and Australia. The mission to connect one another remains constant, but the experience as you journey through the game is greatly enhanced by increased variety and improved technology. That technology is rooted in the Guerrilla Games Decima engine, which has been deftly utilized by Koji Pro's team to create some truly outstanding dynamic landscapes. The leap here is perhaps not quite on the same level as we saw between the first two Horizon games, but that's only because the original Death Stranding set the bar so high. The first key improvement you might notice stems from fine detail, both near and far, similar to Forbidden West. That is, compared to the original, rock formations, vegetation, and other natural landscape elements hold up very well under scrutiny. The game opens in this gorgeous mountain range with a level of detail reminiscent of Epic's nanite virtualized geometry demos, but is achieved without relying on any such technology. The game is packed full of exceptionally fine detail, building on the already great results from the first game and taking it to the next level. There are still large open fields full of finely detailed stones, rocks, and pebbles, but there's also more variety this time. Deserts, lush forest areas, the ruins of a civilization, and more.
And I'm excited for the actual ruins of stuff. Because again, like, I think for me, one of the frustrating things to keep going when I first played Death Stranding back, like, whenever it was 5, 6, 7, 7 years ago. Is that really how far back? No, it's 2019, right? So 6. Anyway, when I first played it way back when, it was just really tough to be like, yes, connect the world, Jeff. Where'd I get Jeff? Connect the world, Sam. Connect the world. Do it. Save humanity. Bring us together. And then there's like all of 15 people, like across the entire continent. And it's like, it feels tough
Tyler
to save
Szynski
civilization,
donated
when
$10
it's
through
so
Super
insignificant.
Coma's writing and cinematography is so silly and over the top. I just think of anime that has bad writing and is utter nonsense. I love it as an anime fan who find the tropes hysterical. MGS did this.
Yeah, well, it's like, I think you have to meet him where he's at. If you go into a Kojima game wanting like gritty, grounded dialogue, you want to feel like you're playing an HBO show, that's just not what you're going to get. And that's, you don't have to like it, but it's just not what you're going to get. Kojima stuff is way weirder. It's way more bizarre. What I do appreciate, though, is that it seems like he at least responded to the feedback where a lot of people said, exposition's great. Dumping info about the world is great, but let me choose to engage with it. Because sometimes I just want to do the delivery. I just want to do the thing I'm here to do. I don't want to be like, okay, I'm doing the deliveries. I'm doing really well. Okay, now I have to sit here for 20 minutes while this character rambles about something. Okay. Whatever. Then you wait for that to end and you keep playing the game. Like a lot of players, they will engage with the exposition when they decide, okay, I want to learn more about the world. And they open the codex and they read some stuff, or they open the emails in the first game and they read the emails, or they go and they talk to NPCs and they find out more about the world. But they choose to do it at certain points once they're kind of mentally in that that headspace and they want to do that. Just like sometimes you won't feel like engaging in combat, sometimes you won't feel like stealthing through a long mission, and so you choose deliveries or you choose missions that fit more with what you're feeling at the time. So giving players like branching dialogue options so that they can choose to engage with more exposition or less if they don't want to deal with it right then, that's a good change. That's good. And I hope that it helps with pacing too, because instead of having to stop everything for 20 minutes for just a bunch of exposition, if you want to just continue the ball rolling and you're feeling it, you can just do the main dialogue option, ignore the extra exposition stuff, come back to it later. Hopefully there's a chance to do that, and then you can continue playing. I think pacing is what killed Death Stranding for a lot of people back 6 years ago, who tried it. They just got to, again, I think it was chapter 3, but like you got to that chapter in Death Stranding where the pacing just dies. Like the game just slows to a crawl out of nowhere. And a lot of people fell off of it at that time. And so I'm wondering if they actually did fix that this time around. The reviews seem generally to be suggesting that it did.
There's definitely a greater sense of progression across this game as you proceed forward. Gaze toward the sky, however, and you'll also spot improvements to the original's Ray March volumetric system. This allows more variety in the cloud formations.
The water also looks way better. Look at that.
And
can I go up that mountain? You see that mountain? Can you go there? Dude, that's going to be one of the first things I try to do. I'm getting to the top of that mountain. There better be something there. Knowing Sony, there's going to be like an Aloy reference or something, but
generally produces cleaner overall results. The marriage of the two is spectacular, especially in HDR, which, by the way, this entire video is being presented in HDR, if you have such a display. But where we really start to see divergence from the original game lies in the more dynamic elements. Things like lighting, weather, and environmental effects all greatly expanded here. For starters, the game now boasts a fully real-time time of day system with smooth transitions between day and night. Watch closely and you'll spot dynamic shadows adjusting in real time according to the sun's position, resulting in some dramatic moments, such as here in the desert where the sun begins to set behind the mountains, shrouding this valley in shadow.
It moves so quickly, that would throw me off.
Or how about in this lush jungle area, the sun begins to peek up between the trees, shining its light through the leaves, creating this beautiful looking scenario. And while we're in this area, I should also note that I like how they handle the shadows in this game. While it can't match ray traced shadows or anything, the sharpness of the shadow penumbra does seem to vary based on the proximity to the object. Like here in the forest, Sam's shadow is a lot sharper than the more diffuse shadows seen from the trees. Shadows are largely artifact-free throughout the game, which is absolutely critical towards keeping that believability intact. In addition, the game unsurprisingly makes use of screen space shadows for finer details, such as those cast by small plants. It's another example of using well-worn techniques to good effect to create something that does look beautiful while remaining performant. The game's approach to both direct and indirect lighting is visually striking, though, as always, not without limitations. From what I can tell, it relies on a pre-calculated probe-based global illumination system with multiple light bakes corresponding to different times of day. This technique works by placing a grid of light probes throughout the environment, essentially sampling points that store indirect lighting information. These probes then
already, like, just the quality of the hologram is also way better.
Inform how the surfaces nearby are lit, allowing for reasonably realistic bounce lighting without the computational expense of real-time ray tracing, because yes, there is no evidence of real-time ray tracing being used here. But despite that, the overall image remains beautiful and cohesive. You'll find areas where the lighting can fall a little bit short, and it's obviously not going to match a real-time ray-traced global illumination system, but it still looks absolutely beautiful. I'm especially fond of sequences where sunlight filters into these interior spaces, be it within enemy installations or aboard the Magellan, producing a moody atmospheric glow that heightens the atmosphere. What really adds to the game's dynamic feel, however, is the sheer variety of weather effects and how they impact the environment in meaningful ways.
Dude, that just already looks crazy. Like, just the water detail as it gets deeper off in the distance. That's wild, dude.
So as with the original, rain and tar continue to play a pivotal role. When caught in the timefall, for instance, thick tar begins to seep up from the earth, enveloping the landscape in a convincing, eerie fashion. The way these phenomena integrate with the gameplay remains one of the game's signature elements. This time, however, water, too, has received a noticeable upgrade, comparable in quality to what we saw with Horizon Forbidden West, albeit with some additional dynamism. A dry riverbed, for instance, might suddenly transform into a raging torrent following a heavy downpour or flash flood. It's not just a visual effect, it directly impacts the traversal and moment-to-moment gameplay. Rushing water also features a robust foam simulation along with floating debris, while calmer bodies of water also behave more realistically.
Shout out robust water sim. Yeah, I mean that just across the board it looks greatly improved. I also see the road, whatever pylon thing there, you can build that off there so you can skip it. All sorts of dynamic weather stuff, the sandstorms. Oh wait, yeah, just look at this.
Surface reflections across water and meadow alike utilize a blend of screen space reflections with height field ray marching, helping to reduce the typical disocclusion artifacts you see with SSR. Yes, screen space issues are still present if you go looking for them, for sure, but they're masked more effectively than in many other comparable titles, especially when used on water. On the topic of reflections though, one standout moment involves a fireworks display surrounding the player. The spectacle itself is amazing, with a dense array of GPU-driven particles lighting up the scenery around you. But what's even more striking is that these particles are also reflected across nearby surfaces. This isn't just typical SSR play, obviously. The reflections appear to mirror the particles themselves, resulting in a remarkably consistent and immersive presentation. And yes, all of this runs at a rock-solid 60 frames per second. The particle work then is exceptional. Rain, as in the original, is superbly handled, something you'd expect from a team with roots tracing back to Metal Gear Solid 2 and its iconic tanker chapter.
I'm sorry, it will never not be weird to me to just see the camera pan and see a toddler strapped to his chest. It's just my brain sees it. It's like, what the, like, it's just weird to me. Okay. I am curious how it integrates this time around compared to like the BBs in the first game. You know, it's going to be interesting, but yeah, the toddler, it's pretty cute to have the toddler in their own Timefall outfit. This is pretty funny. It's just, again, it's freaking weird, dude. It's freaking weird, but that's Kojima for you. It's just bizarre. Oh man, like if you rewound the clocks like 10 years, you know, and you just say, yeah, Kojima, I think he left Konami in like 2015, 16, something like that. So if you're like, hey, Kojima's gonna leave Konami, leave Metal Gear behind, basically, and then he's gonna come out with a new IP. It's gonna be kind of controversial, but it's gonna get a sequel in 2025, where you're carrying around a toddler strapped to your chest, because the first game you carried around a baby strapped to your chest, and then you would fight giant tar monsters by throwing your pee at them. It's like, nobody would believe you. It's just crazy, but that's Stranding. I mean, that's Kojima. That's what you get, man. That's what you get.
Rain lashes the environment. Droplets refract light as they strike the virtual lens. And when the action slows down, such as during hand-to-hand combat, these effects continue to animate realistically in slow motion. It's a true visual treat. Beyond the rain, other types of weather and environmental conditions can appear as well. Sandstorms, for instance, generate a towering wall of particulate matter that engulfs the player. As you push through, you're met with fierce winds and poor visibility. I wonder if the sand has a timefall effect too, or if it just damages the packages, you know, because like snow, it gave increased timefall penalties, but I wonder if the sand does anything. Maybe not. It combines volumetric rendering with billboarded sand particles, while Sam's suit accumulates sand in real time. Cross a body of water afterward, and that sand is convincingly washed away. Dude, I don't know why I love that kind of thing. Like just the little details of collecting sand, and you walk in water up to this point and it rinses that off. That's just freaking cool, dude. Like that's just cool. I remember seeing a video of GTA 5 in 2013 where Michael walked into the water and he got about like belly deep.
And then he comes back out and walks on the beach, and then his belly, like up to there, is wet, and then everything above him is not. And you know, it's 2013 texture stuff, so it's just basically like a glossier, darker cloth. It's nothing crazy, but it was really cool back then, and to see it more widespread now is awesome. Because I feel like throughout, especially the early PS5 era, all of the focus was on ray trace stuff, so attention to detail with features like this was largely ignored and forgotten. It was just like, whatever, don't think about it. But I love it, man. These little details, they matter, and it's noticeable, and it's freaking cool, dude. It's freaking cool.
It's more than just a visual flourish. These storms impact gameplay as well. You can use them to evade pursuers, for instance, and the wind itself has a physical presence, pushing Sam around and making traversal that much more difficult. There's even a scene where you'll encounter these fire-based effects paired with thick volumetric smoke that gradually fills the air with an oppressive cinematic haze. It's deeply
this is the kangaroo mission. Well, there's a
atmospheric,
forest fire.
and also, again, directly ties
bushfire.
into the gameplay. And that's one of the big components with this game, is that all of these cool effects and various systems that are integrated here do actually matter in terms of how you play the game and cross the world of Death Stranding 2.
Well, it's something that Breath of the Wild kind of reintroduced to everybody, was the idea that you could have so many interlocking mechanics that can all affect gameplay in different and unique ways. But they can also be visually interesting at the same time. So even just something as simple as going to the cold area on the map in Breath of the Wild, it doesn't just look different, it also has different gameplay effects. Like, you need to make sure you're either eating like the chilies that you collect nearby in order to heat yourself up, or you need to dress warmer, otherwise you'll take damage. Like little bitty things like that, where it's not just a visual representation of something cool and different, it also has an effect on gameplay. You know, it's one of those things you see it implemented and you're like, no, duh, that's what you should be doing. But, you know, until then, it's that's just how it is. So across the board, I think it's looking really, really solid. The reviews are all very, very good. But again, key takeaway, if you liked Death Stranding, you will probably love Death Stranding 2. If you didn't like Death Stranding 1, chances are this one also will not be for you. It's still a Death Stranding game. You know, it's not magic. It's going to be more Death Stranding. But if you liked the first game, or even kind of had a good time with it, it's worth checking out. It seems that they've really cranked the dials and they've really taken it up a notch in many, many ways. For me, what's most exciting for me is hearing that they have streamlined the writing. That is personally what gets me excited. That's what intrigues me, because I felt that the dialogue was where Death Stranding largely lost me. I connected with the gameplay. I enjoyed that gameplay loop, but the writing lost me. So hearing that they made improvements there is really exciting, and that intrigues me. I'm excited about that. Definitely burning a hole in my wallet for this one. Well, and I believe it goes up tonight. I think Steam said like 9 p.m. Pacific time is when it's going up, I think. So, yeah, I think if you want the early access, you can get into it there. What are your thoughts on early access? I don't personally, like, my ideal is let everybody play it at the same time. I understand for the devs, it's often a way to get a little bit more cash from the diehard fans who want that. And maybe won't find a unique skin that compelling to upgrade to a deluxe edition. So I think that that's part of it. In the specific case of Death Stranding, it can actually weirdly be helpful for the launch day, because in Death Stranding, if you play it like at launch day, there's not a whole lot of the stranding elements implemented yet, because players haven't done it yet. So there aren't a lot of the more dynamically placed elements. You might see what the reviewers placed if it's still in the game, but a lot of the time like games will do full server wipes before launch, so chances are the reviewer items aren't there. So you will likely have a better time with the game if you play it on actual launch day, because all of the early access people will have already placed different items for you to use, which is kind of funny that it works that way. But yeah, if you also want to wait for it to come to PC, I'm guessing a year, it's probably on PC. That would be my guess. I don't have any secret knowledge of that, but that would be my suspicion. So it's looking really good. It's looking good. We'll check it out. I'm going to play it when it goes up tonight is my plan. And we'll put a video out on the big channel, checking it out and giving it a shot. I'm glad to hear that my biggest frustrations have been addressed, and it seems like they've made a lot of improvements there. So I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm excited for it. We're going to check it out.
He took my thing.